I just wanted to share all the books that I read in March. In total, I read 6 books, and 5 of them were fiction, 1 was nonfiction. So let's get started. The first book I read was Dance of Thieves by Mary Pearson. You don't have to read the Remnant Chronicles to read this one, but it was really nice to see the connections in the two. Since it's been a while, I forgot some of the characters from the Remnant Chronicles, but luckily I was still able to keep up with the plot. I will say that this book has some cliches, but it was still really enjoyable and a fun read. Next up, I read The Inheritance Games and the Hawthorn Legacy, book 1 and 2. This book was really similar to The Mysterious Benedict Society, and it's about a girl who finds out that she's able to inherit a massive fortune from a stranger she never knew, as long as she's able to solve a bunch of puzzles with a group of brothers. And as usual, it gets so much more complicated than that. This book was very enjoyable. It was pretty fast-paced and, again, full of cliches. This is the book I would recommend if you are just coming off of a reading slump and you need something easy to get back into reading. And for the Hawthorn Legacy, it got way more complicated than the original plot, but I think it sets things up for book 3 very well. I have to say, I didn't like it as much as book 1, but I'm curious to see how she's going to wrap up the story in book 3. I also read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This book was so shocking and so bizarre. That's pretty much the best way to describe it. It's literally about a girl who decides that she's going to sleep for an entire year. So she quits her job, all of her expenses are covered, so she just takes pills and goes to sleep every day for as much as she can. This book was extremely unpredictable. The main character was sad, she was cynical, but she also just had a way of describing things and narrating her life that would make this book very unforgettable. I don't think it's one of my favorite books, and I didn't like the main character a whole lot, but it is something that I just simply can't forget because of how odd this book was. I really liked the concept of this story and the idea behind it, but I feel like the execution could have been a lot better. Next up, I read Mouth to Mouth, which I actually started reading like a month ago, but it just took me a while to get through this book. It's the story about a man who meets a former classmate at the airport lounge, and since their flight got delayed, they have time to catch up. This former classmate shares his life story with the other person, and it's part suspense and part mystery. The former classmate shares a story of how he saved someone's life, and then through a series of events, he becomes now the director of like an art museum. This book was interesting, but it didn't have enough thriller or suspense for people who really enjoy that genre. And on the other hand, the characters in the plot were good, but they weren't well developed. It moves at such a pace that I didn't really feel the suspense when I was reading. I thought the plot of the book was okay. It was a little predictable, especially near the end. I really liked the concept of this book, but I didn't like the way the story was executed. Lastly, I read Minor Feelings, and this book is described as memoir, cultural criticism, and history. We learn a lot about the writer's personal struggles with Asian American identity when she was growing up, as well as how poets, artists, and other people have tried to define what it means to be Asian American. She also shares a lot of facts and history with us, and it's very interesting. It's a really well-written collection of essays that explore all the different dimensions of what it means to be Asian American, and for me, some of them were expected, but some of them were also interesting and really provided a fresh perspective. She is also just a very great writer, so the book is also just pretty easy to read and also just a very good, thought-provoking read. I really like it when writers are able to convey complex ideas in a way that is just simple and understandable. And this is what she accomplishes here. She blends her personal experiences with history very well. These are all the 6 books that I read in March, so thanks for watching and let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts on them are.